For a lot of people, planning a Disney trip can be overwhelming if you've never done it before. So to help us all get some good ideas on how to get started, I've asked one of the experts to come on the show. This is Jennifer McCormick. She is a travel planner who specializes in Disney trips. Thank you so much for coming on the show.
Thank you so much for having me.
So I think the first thing we should talk about, and you shared a little bit of information for me that was pretty shocking, is that Disneyland and Disney World, what's different about them? You were saying the size of them. I was really surprised to hear how much bigger Disney World is than Disneyland.
Right, so Disney World property is significantly larger than Disneyland. But Disneyland, when it started, it began as, Walt Disney's love letter to his kids and to families, and really wanting it to be a destination park, a theme park. That took off, of course, and he realized we need more space, we need more property, and so went and started the Disney World project. Disney World has grown significantly over the years, and so Disney World property is now roughly the size of San Francisco.
The whole city, wow.
The city of San Francisco. So when you think about visiting Disney World, so many people ask me, how long should I plan a trip to do it all? And the answer is that you can't do it all. There's no way in 7 days or even a year that you can do everything at Disney World. Disneyland is different. Disneyland is a much smaller complex. So if you think Disney World property is about 25,000 acres, Disneyland property in California is about 500 acres. You've got two fantastic parks, the original Disneyland, and then Disney California Adventure Park, which is much newer. You've got 3 resorts there, lots of good neighbor hotels because of course it was built in a more residential area. And so Disney World is a destination, international destination in and of itself. Disneyland is as well, but it's a lot more approachable.
So 25,000 to 500.
Right.
It's about 50 times bigger.
Right.
I was expecting maybe like 3 or 4 times bigger, but 50 times bigger kind of surprised me. Yeah. So what, I guess, are the pros and cons of going versus Disneyland versus Disney World? I have young kids, and we were kind of looking at like which one is better for younger kids, which one's bigger for older kids. So what are some of the things that people should know about the differences between the two parks?
Right. Well, I wouldn't say one is better for older, one is better for younger. I think it's the type of vacation that you're looking for. It could be the locations. For some folks, it's easier to get to Florida. For some, it's easier to get to California. It could be the length of your trip. And so typically I find that families who are looking for a much shorter trip tend to go with the Disneyland option because it's easier to see more in a couple of days. Typically, families who are looking for a longer trip, a week, 2 weeks, will go to Disney World and be entertained at Disney World the entire time.
And here on this show, we're all about saving money. And one thing that's that I'm curious about is, if you book far in advance, can you save some money, and how far in advance should you be booking your trip? This
is a fantastic question, and I think there's a really common misconception about this, but for Disney World or Disneyland, the best thing you can do for yourself is book as far in advance as you possibly can. This is because, of course, prices increase, as trips get closer, prices always increase, so it's important to have those packages booked, but also with Disney World and Disneyland, the way that most people book is they book a room and ticket package together. And so when you book a package, you put down a $200 deposit. That $200 deposit is 100% refundable until your final payment date, which is 30 days prior to check-in. You can make any changes you want in that time, add things, take away things, increase your park days, add the park hopper option, lots of different options that you can put on your package, but you've locked in the location where you want to stay and those early rates. And if you decide for some reason you can't travel, you get that money back. Or if you decide this isn't the right time, I want to push it out to a future date, you can do that with no penalties.
So is it like 6 months ahead of time or a year that you start to see, or when should people start to kind of be thinking about that?
That's a great question. That really depends. For Disney World, we can book right now out through trips starting October 31st, 2025. So if you're looking through most of 2025, now is the time to book, to get everything on your calendar, also to potentially start making payments toward your trip. But for Disneyland, we can only book through the end of 2024. They tend to release the next year's packages around August, early mid-August. But as far as discounts are concerned, it really depends. So Disney World often has what they call future stay offers or bounce backs. They want folks to come back. And so the way that works is within 7 days of checkout, you can book a trip for the next year. This year, the bounce back offers are only offered through the end of 2024 so far, but you can book your next trip at up to about 35% off. So a significant savings. And so I tell all of my clients, it's really wise if you're thinking about it just to do that. Put down the $200 deposit. If you can't travel, fine. You can always cancel, have those funds refunded. But if not, you probably have the best possible discount you could get. So there are lots of tips and tricks and tools, but the best thing you can do for yourself is plan as far out as you can.
And I know there are a lot of hotels inside the parks and a lot of them right outside, like a block outside.
Yeah,
what are the pros and cons of staying inside the park versus outside?
That's a fantastic question. I'll start with, they're different. So Disney World and Disneyland, because of the size of the properties and how they work, different pros and cons. But for Disney World, I would say for the vast majority of families, their best benefits are going to be staying at a Disney World owned and operated resort. This is because you get 30 minutes early entry to every park every day. So you already have early access to the parks. And if you're not an early morning person, I recommend that you become an early morning person, at least for some of your Disney days, because you can get a lot done in that early time before they open to the general public. Other important things is that at Disney World, you have early booking benefits for dining reservations and for what Disney World calls enchanting extras. So special extra things that can be booked 60 days in advance. For Disney World resort guests, they're able to book them 60 days in advance for the length of their stay. So there are certain things that are fully booked by 60 days. So if you're staying off property, you might not be able to get into the Bibbidi Bobbidi Boutique. You might not be able to get the highly sought after character dining experience that you are looking for because of the fact that your Disney World resort guests may have booked those 70 days in advance because of that priority. And then there are some discounts that are offered. A big one for Disney World for 2025 is that on your arrival day, you will have free access to a Disney water park. So we know lots of people like to get a jump on their trips. They book their trip and then they find the earliest possible flights if they're flying down, or if they're driving, they might drive to within a couple of hours of Disney World property, spend the night, get to Disney World. They arrive at their resort. Of course, the room's not ready yet, at 9 or 10 o'clock in the morning. So what do? At Disney World, you always have access to your resort all day on your check-in day, all day on your checkout day. So if you have a park ticket for that day, you can leave your bags with Bell Services, you can head to the park. But in 2025 now, if you'd like, you can leave your bags with Bell Services and go to one of the 2 Disney World water parks completely for free.
How about Disneyland?
Yep.
I know I saw, if you're just looking for my own trip, is that a lot of the hotels in the park were a little more expensive than the ones out. So is it worth the extra money for the Disneyland side that you're paying?
That totally depends on the family. Disneyland only has 3 Disneyland owned and operated resorts. They're all pretty much deluxe level resorts. They've got quite a bit of amenities, really wonderful pools. They have specialty access to Disney California Adventure Park. So there's a private entrance that's outside of the main entrance. And then guests staying at the Grand Californian Disneyland Hotel or Pixar Place get 30 minutes early entry to one park each day. So it alternates. It's not the same. Now at Disneyland, if you're looking for more value accommodations, Disney World has value resorts, they have moderate resorts, they have deluxe resorts. Disneyland has more on the end of the deluxe resorts, of the owned and operated resorts. We see a lot more families booking Good Neighbors because they are, in some cases, right across the street. And so you might see a much better value right across the street. You'll lose the early entry, you'll lose some of those private entrances, but if you're saving a significant amount of money, if that's what fits in the budget, that's great. I personally love to be in the Disney bubble. I love my Disney resorts, but sometimes it makes sense to stay across the street. Some of the hotels across the street will have free breakfasts and other amenities that you don't necessarily get at the Disneyland owned and operated hotels.
Another big question I had too is for someone who's never planned a trip.
Right.
What's, I guess, a good budget that it would, or what does it typically cost for, let's say, like a family of 4 to get a package of, flying out there, and then maybe they're staying for a couple of days? What should they budget for? This
varies greatly, and something that I work very closely with families on because it can depend completely on the time of year that you can travel, what days of the week you can travel, and then again, how far in advance you're able to plan. If flights are about 400, under 400, unless I'm looking at the last week in December or a major spring break week. That's usually what I'm looking for. For a package, it depends on how long you want to stay. So, and again, this can vary on the time of year. So if you're looking at September or January or an off season, you can spend significantly less. I was running some numbers, and if you are doing, a free dining promotion at a moderate resort for a family of 5, say 6 nights, 5-day park tickets, it's about $175 per person per day. If you're looking at last week in December, double or triple that easily.
Oh, wow.
Sometimes more. If you're looking at deluxe accommodations, that's more. If you're looking for higher level dining, experiences, that's more. So, an entry level really depends on how much, how long families are planning on staying, but also when they can travel. So I always recommend, if at all possible, an off season, one of those times when it's a better experience in the parks too, because it's not packed. Disneyland, whether you are staying at a Good Neighbor or a Disneyland resort hotel, that's always going to be a bit more. California is more expensive, but also you tend to stay a shorter period of time. And I know it doesn't make, it's sort of counterintuitive to think about it that way, but when you're thinking about park tickets, that's probably the bulk of what you're spending, is the cost of your park tickets. At Disney World, especially, the more days you have, the less you pay per day. So for example, if you've got a 5-day park ticket, you're looking to add a 6th day, tickets are variable depending on the season, but you could be paying as little as $15 or $20 to add that 6th day. So the difference between a 4-day park ticket and a 10-day park ticket is roughly the cost of just one standalone park day. So if families are wanting to stay longer, not feel so rushed, you're not spending quite as much on tickets there. Disneyland, you still pay less per day as you add days on, but most families aren't, spending 10 days at Disneyland. The maximum ticket is a 5-day ticket. And so, I would say starting at maybe about $200 per person per day at a Good Neighbor for, say, a 4-night stay, 3-day park tickets, and of course, the sky's the limit from there on what you can add.
Well, thank you so much for giving us a little bit of a preview, so all of us can start planning if we're looking at planning a trip. Thanks so much for stopping by.
Thanks so much for having me. I appreciate it.